Hello and welcome to, guess what? It's the guessing game post-game show. I'm your host, MonstrousWalker of the MonstrousWalker Show. And the mystery, well, hey, let's fire it up let's fire the thing up from the big moment. Don't look at any of this. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. Don't look. There it is. There it is. Jules guessed it right in here. And we do have I do have that one up on, I do have the historic call up on YouTube. Spiral, she guesses. Spiral was my mystery. Here's the call. Jules W's 21st solve since we started the thing. There's the history of Jules W's solves. Touch when she was a wee small girl. 6 straight, her incredible winning streak. And there she settles into more sanity in general as opposed to 6 winning streak. But she's way ahead of anybody else. I believe 12 is the most solves outside of Jules. She's been with me since virtually the beginning. She wasn't around for the flower mystery, but she's been around for the other 102. This is guess game 103. And then here come the congratulations. The wonderful congratulations. Yay, Jules! Link to a Marvel Comics books character. And who vaguely resembles a spiral. This one was cool. This one is something to look at. This is something to look at. Bubbly all around. Congratulations, Jules W. '21 champagne popping salute, virtually. Maybe even more. Congratulations, Jules, for solving Spiral. '21 solves, lifetime, quite an accomplishment. She got it on exactly on guess number 600. Way to go, Jules. She's even known to like her alcohol. Wow. Enough already, you think? Yes, indeed. And she got it, well, she'll explain how she got it. I was hoping for a little bit more magic in the process. Oh, 2015. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was 2015. Way to go. Congratulations. 21 solves. I should be reading them. I should be reading them right now. I'll have to see if there's paper somehow. Happy birthday. Well, it's not about birthday. Oh, that lady's kind of interesting there. Interesting. Is that Champaign, Illinois? Here we go. Congratulations, Jules W. Who's that lady? All right. That was a very nice, that was like just perfect. Just perfect link to give us, Librana. 21 solves for Jules. Wow. Bit of a conversation going on from earlier. Beautiful Rome. Goodness, well, goodness me. That's a bit unexpected. I see. I thought I was miles off. Well done. Congratulations. Thanks, MW. That's me. Another good game as usual. You've done it again. How did you get to Spiral? Thanks, MW. Okay, decided to check out the Wikipedia entry for galaxy clusters, and I spotted 2 words. You can read too. I thought might also relate vaguely to premiere and television. Premiere and television. I didn't think I'd be anywhere near the mystery itself. I was hoping to get a bit closer to the top 10 traditionals and have many. You can read. Bit of luck. Everybody says it's a bit of luck when there's more to it. And there's some secondary questions a person could ask to make one wonder how lucky this actually was. For example, why did you look up galaxy clusters? Why did you make your guess based on galaxy clusters? Because you can make an argument for galaxy cluster being the strongest word on the list in its own way, and yet did not actually finish number 1 in anything. So why did Jules go that way as opposed to looking up some of these other candidates? Or does she just look up other candidates and in their turn, and now it was Galaxy Cluster's turn? Premiere and television. I don't even think television is... I don't think television finished first in anything, as a matter of fact. Though it had its moment in, what was it, Best Worsts? It was a lot of search. We were lost. We were fairly lost, and I guess if you're lost, well done, brilliant, Jules. And yeah, there's a real name slipping through. And I've actually sent her a book on book crossing and been exposed to her real name. You know what? I have not even looked at this one. I don't think it's the time to. But I guess it is. I'm the appropriate person to send this link to. Maybe a little bit embarrassed that I would be, but I am. Okay. I think it's time to do some of my wrap-up work live on camera, because otherwise I will never have a chance to really go over the extras with you this game that I kept meaning to. For all the screencasts I did, I never really walked through these extras out loud. So I mean, there's one link out there of the basic rules for anyone who wants to become a host, but you're gonna need to know about these extras too. It's not just those big 3 measures. So we wiggle and we squiggle and we run our mouse around, and here we go. Here's my celebratory spiral. Let's wind down to another point. Okay, spiral. There it is. Spiral, the mystery. And there it is on top now. Spiral. Okay. As we clean up our house, there's a few things we have to do on our spreadsheet to clean up our house. First off, we don't need any of this garbage. Was that frightening? We don't need any of this garbage. We're going to be posting And where else don't we need garbage? We don't need garbage for rankings. They might be nice to have around, except that we're going to do a post that has only so much room on WordPress, and it's not really going to help us. It's not what I want to prioritize. There it is. From here, guess 1 through 599 and 600 on the top. A little strange. But yes, it was the 600th guess exactly for Spiral. And well, we're not going to need this garbage exactly, but oh, you know what? When I erased that garbage, I should have made a little bit of an explanation. I should have given it the slightest explanation. I know what this is doing exactly. BO, body odor, potentially. I guess we should go through every column in the return here. J, we'll get there, huh? We'll get there. Column J that I just erased deals with percentage ranks, which is this. Here you order this by most percentage and highest percentage and spit it out here. J's where percentage ranks falls out. Double A here is where traditional ranks fall out. That's column D being ordered. These guys' overall scores being ordered. Just how it shakes out for me. And definitely a lack of magic in what goes under what column. AN is where the differential ranks had been, and that's ordering these guys differentials AK out from largest to smallest. That gets you your AN. And I guess I have some kind of random spot over here. I don't know what bearing it might have on cleanup. But I don't really need any ranks right now, or ever. Well, until the next game. I don't need any of that stuff. I'll keep everything else, though. Okay. This is a little bit of a chore, and I'm hoping that it's made a little bit easier. I'm hoping that you guys are going to help me, that your presence is going to help me. You're going to be watchful, you're going to be interested, and that will help make this interesting to me and less chore-like. Fat chance, huh? Okay. We are going to order everything by overall scores. There's a good idea. This is not something I do routinely. It always feels a little bit new, always a bit of the getting the bearings to think about what it is I want to accomplish. We're going to start with D. So there's our overall scores, maybe for ogling purposes. See, Spiral is considered to be infinite. One could actually attach an overall score to it as well. But, and embarrassingly, historically, it doesn't actually finish first every time. So I'd rather say that the scores are infinite, because you can get a mutiny going if it doesn't actually win. Anyways, there they are. Our final overall scores. Never found the source. Well, okay, Premiere and Television are first and second in traditionals. I guess that was the idea for Jules. She wanted to get something that related to the top two in traditionals. I'm thinking I should look up Premiere, Television, and Trailer to try to nail it. I want to satisfy myself someday. What was causing these crazy traditional scores? I suspect a rogue website, and I suspect something along the lines of Computer World. The Computer World website, when our mystery was floundering, and they had a column called Floundering Users. So that floundering ended up being on this page, ended up having proximity on a significant web page without having any real relationship in terms of meaning. So I was suspecting something like that was going on, but I never really found anything. So I've always found something before. I've always found the reason before. And with the next mystery due in about a day or so, I'm at risk of never finding the source of all these things doing well. So it made matters confusing for the guessers, which would be a good reason for them to rely on search engines. But then I think, well, the search engines is the problem in this case. It's a rogue site that's a problem. I would have been happier with people coming to Spiral by looking with more depth when I posted Foolsies. Try pick up some things from deeper into the lists than they apparently were going, or than the champ was going, or anyone, because the entire game, I think we could show that over the entire game, we were poorer, our differentials were below average. And I don't think they had to be. If they were given value, we could have done much better in differentials if people put their minds on them. And they're biased towards tweeners in hits, but in a sense they're the least biased. As far as distances from zero, the big fat, the large differentials, maybe we should look at this while we're talking about it. The large differential, like 180, that's a huge one. They're biased in terms of tweeners in the sense that a 180, a guess up at 180 is much more likely to be a tweener, kind of in the middle range of hits, than something down in single digits would be. Or here, looking at measuring positives against positives, entertainment and history being a couple examples. Very low. Very low positives. So Premier would be much more likely to be a tweener than the words entertainment or history would be. And so differential is very biased towards the tweeners in that sense. But then it gets to be about the least biased measure we have. Maybe not telling you all that much except, heads or tails, 1 or 0. Just as far as plus sign, minus sign goes, and occasionally zeros. Spiral is Premier is a positive. Entertainment is like at +1 is likewise a positive. And so in some basic way, yes, they did well. And conceivably, they could have done, depending on how many hits entertainment might have gotten, it could have done just as well. Or we might be able to see measures that rank entertainment as well or better. I don't know that actually happened, but um, the plus part is very significant. It tells you in some way, yes, entertainment. Entertainment's a good one. Premiere is a good one. Okay, what is the type of guest that finished on that half? What is the flavor of a guest that finishes somewhere on the positive side as opposed to somewhere on the negative side? It's like the most basic distinction that we really never made. From percentages, we got the whiff that the astrophysics did well. Outer space, astronomy. Maybe we should say astronomy. I don't know how we should go with that. Outer space, galaxies, anything in sniffing distance of a galaxy. Percentages were able to tell us that did well. We had traditionals bursting in, leading us apparently to a rogue website that no one could ever find. Maybe it was two. Maybe it was two sites that made things confusing. Actually, I remember. Hell yeah! I mean, if it's a rogue website, typically all what you need to do is just gather up the top scorers and scoop them all into a bunch and search them all together and see what comes at the top. And we really didn't have the consistency of any kind of dominant site suddenly appearing, that when you went 30 deep, suddenly there was one dominant site appearing. Maybe Google will do that still. Let me see. Will Google still do that? But it just seemed like there wasn't a dominant site that started getting stronger and stronger and stronger the more of the traditionals that you scooped up. It wasn't that easy. That was the way to solve computer world, solve floundering in computer world. Anyways, I don't really know. I am curious. I want to know. I don't have a lot of time left to find out before I'm going to be swamped in my next mystery. But percentages told us quite clearly about 1 cent. But we never, ever, 600 guesses, and we never picked up a flavor. We never picked up a basic flavor from the 300-ish that were positive as opposed to the 300-ish that were negative. And we were never able to find guesses outside of astronomy that were likely to do well. We had no sense of what was going to do well outside of astronomy for the entire game. Okay, so we have ranted, we have raved. We have our overall scores ordered. And now, see, I have to always try and find my bearings, what this is about. I need to scoop up the zeros. This might be a 0 too. Let's look at this. Well, the zeros, except for the last two, the zeros aren't really zeros. So we do home, and then, is that what we want to do? Yeah, it is below. Okay. I won't concern myself with anything else. So 0.1, let's look at this at least a little bit further. Oh, okay, that's the right direction. This one needs to be gone further. There, now everybody's on the board. See, these zeros are 0.00 and they truly are zeros. The game had two guesses with out of 600 with no shares at all. So there's that. Is this one we do for the purpose of the last year's log? Let me see now. I guess I'll do it. Oh, most hits. Is this the correct way to do it? Do we want set jetter at the bottom? $2.99. This would work out to 50. I guess that's fine. It's arranged by Laster's log. Sense of. See, when you get to zero share guesses, most of the time I like to think that the guess with the most hits, in this case set jetter versus glimpses, the one with the most hits is the one that is actually a better guess. So if I were being particular, I would normally put set jetter first, ahead of glimpses beyond death's door. But then there's a Lasher's log that thinks that if you have zero, I have a particular measure that says that we're going to be more impressed with this, by the zero share guess with the most hits. So I'm not going to concern myself with it. Okay. I'm trying to remember what is more traditional for me or usual for me to, how is it more usual for me to post in my wrap up? Anyways, now that we've gotten this far, we need to apply a custom maneuver to this little patch of guesses. This is all about making it pretty for my presentation on WordPress. And I think it's this one I need. Is that the one I need? Because I didn't need it to be that advanced. Uh-oh. Okay, boom. So here I get repeating some work, actually. 2, 1. And then this one, right? Okay. So now everything is pretty, or as pretty as I care to make it. We could get obsessive about breaking some ties, but this is as pretty as I care to make it. Virtually everything between 1 and upwards, or not enough below 1 to be that annoying. See, I don't want to have to raise everything 3 digits to make this fall above 1. In general, I don't like to deal decimals, but I think at that point we're getting into crazy talk, because no one's gonna be able to hold, or it's gonna be very difficult to hold 100 millions in your heads as an overall score, or to read that as a glance and see 100 millions. I do have a maneuver that could put in the commas, another custom feature that could put in the commas, but I'm not really into being that insane about making things pretty. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe I tried it one time and decided that it actually threatened my pretty column in terms of everything I wanted to cram into the space. I'm not sure how that one went, actually. Here's where the HTML comes in handy. We're going to be going over to all this stuff finally becomes clear. When I make my pretty box score, not a box score actually has a different meaning. And particularly to the guessing game has a different meaning. I could show you that perhaps too. But my roundup, my spreadsheet roundup, we're going to post it to WordPress. Part of making my table pretty is that we put this is what column A is about. See, the crazy extension of columns all the way down to CE is largely, though not completely, about the fact that we need to build in quite a few spaces for HTML to make pretty tables at WordPress, or wherever you want to take it. You want to make your pretty tables. This becomes part of this, has become part of the spreadsheet, permanent spreadsheet. So, and I have to relearn this stuff. If I ever lost this, I'd have to totally relearn how to do it. But at this point, I have a template, and part of the template is you have the table up at the upper left corner. You have this business for column B. You have this business for column C. And overall scores here in column D. And I've gone through overall scores in the past. This business of HTML for columns E and F separates overall scores from percentage scores prettily. Percentage scores are explained in another broadcast. H's and I's, more of our beautiful HTML. We only have so much space for the table that we're going to present. Therefore, J for percentage ranks was deleted. The guesses, column K is where I have my guesses. L and M, more of our HTML for the table. Column N, guess hits. How many hits did Deeper Web spit out when you hit enter on these various guesses? O and P, to make our tables pretty. Q, raw shares, the number the Deeper Web spits out. Once you combine your guess with the mystery, both elements in quotes, and hit enter. R and S, HTML for our tables. Column T, mystery hits. How many hits, in this case, did Spiral get from one round to the next? Expressed in millions. Raw shares expressed in thousands. That should be guess hits in millions. You know, we don't go crazy with zeros. So it's all about minimizing the craziness with zeros. That guess hits in this mystery, and usually probably most of the time, guess hits are in millions, because that's stable. Mysteries range all over the place in terms of how many hits, and most often I think it is best to express them in thousands rather than millions, or sometimes actual. When I did Panda Cigarettes, I did shares in actual. Mystery hits, as we explained. Column U, a little bit more for our HTML. Column V appears to be this big old blank, doesn't it? But it's actually, column V is actually the end of the table. And somewhere in here, I'm going to have one magic little, there it is, the end of the table right there. And I have to be, well, I guess this is something I can do right now, isn't it? We're going to scoop up the end of the table, cut, and we're going to bring the end of the table down to what is going to be the actual end of the table. Right there. Okay, now the table is closed. I'm actually going to present a part 1 and a part 2 of my spreadsheet. A lot of the information, a lot of the essential information appears over here, so we want to show the people that. But I also would like to show the people the guest numbers and their own names in relationship to these guesses in some way. And for that, we need a part 2. Okay. So adjusted shares here, nobody cares about adjusted shares. This is something that we'd rather be like Oz and do this behind the curtain. So adjusted shares is not inside any of these boxes. It's not here. Here's where part 1 goes, from V to A, going off there. That's the information that's going to be contained in the first post. of my spreadsheet. And from X, not exactly X onward, I guess. How is this going to work out? Like, yeah, okay. X to some point we'll find out exactly where it ends. For my second half. But adjusted shares here itself does not belong to either, is not going to belong to either side. So here from column X, we are beginning our journey with regards to part 2. Let me see now. Usually I have to make mystery hits pretty, or I often have to. Let's see what happened there. No, I guess this time we don't care. Sometimes we care, but this time we don't care. Is that how it goes? No. I do have to be concerned about mystery hits. I do need to be concerned about mystery hits. So let's concern ourselves. No, not mystery hits. Wait a second. Guess hits. Okay. We had zeros to deal with overall scores. Percentage scores, I'd like to let them be. I don't think there's any reason not to let them be. Yeah, there's no reason not to let these be. I think you're starting with 0 anyways. And guess hits. Oh, okay. Guess hits have a potential to range. Let's do everybody by N. And for some reason, I'm deciding I want to scoop up this way rather than down. Down from, what, level 5 on. We're going to do these by largest N because I have a lot of the same business. I have a lot of the same issues for making my columns pretty in N, and especially Q. I don't like it when it starts with 0. So we're going to take everything that involves a 0. Oh my, that could get interesting. And we're going to apply the custom feature to them. Yeah, applying the custom feature. It seems I should be able to do this right off the bat, huh? But I guess there's more to it than I think they're going to be able to handle. Let's use this one for the starters. Or maybe we want to do this one. Let's see what happens if we do this one. Or does this create more work for me? See, I'm seeing at a glance that I have 3, well, down to here. I have 3 zeros. I can chop off all of these guys. Does that make it bigger? Excuse me. Okay. So then there's these guys who get 2 of their buggers chopped off. Take that down to 100. And then these guys need 1 of their buggers chopped off. See, this is a little bit more involved than perhaps Excel can handle, or my expertise about handle Excel can handle. And so all these others, see, if I could go really crazy and decide that I don't want these N zeros either, but I'm not going to get that crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4. These guys have 3 ahead of a time. These have 4 ahead. And that works for me, I think. Yeah. And we have to do the same thing for column Q in the spirit of making everything pretty for the table. So we're also going to want to do Q by Largest to smallest. Raw shares are largest to smallest, because this column also involves some strange cues. I think we'd be more attractive in our wrap-up posts at WordPress. Yep, here's where things start getting kind of ugly looking. Let's get rid of the zeros there. Those are natural zeros. Oh, I guess that I only need to... Oh, excuse me. Thank you for telling me that I was about to be crazy. No, I'm not being about to be crazy. Home is what I want, though. It's not data that I want, is it? No, it's over here. More number formats at the bottom. Custom at the bottom. And I guess it's this one that takes away the zeros. And since it's expressed in thousands, I don't think there's any need to take out anything else. So now that one's pretty. That one is pretty. And you know what? Actually, I'm going to be ordering the first batch by overalls. The first half of the spreadsheet by overalls, and the second by differentials. And so, you know what? We need D. We need to set D back. So, lack of efficiency, which is pretty consistent with me anyways, when it comes to the end here, because I'm always relearning. Always get my bearings about how to do this in the first place. Let's reassure ourselves that column V is finishing up in the right spot. It's not. Huh? Couldn't make up its mind about which zero, just like me. It couldn't make up its mind about which zero to put ahead of the other. Okay. I'm going to scoop these all up now, because now that it's ordered, I have to do some more reordering. Now this time when we scoop it up, we don't scoop it up here. We just select here at the top. And we're going to take this down to V. Scoop it up from V to the point where we see the end of the table. And person can get hypnotized. There's the end. We're going to copy. And I'm a little bit preloaded. I saw you in advance. I saw you coming. So I preloaded to here. This should do it for us. Please stand by. And then, is there any reason not to do this from the top? Just be okay, shouldn't it? All that business. So what we have here, the way that I do this is such like spiral number 1. This is the convention that I have developed for this stage of things. The mystery with spiral is the number 1 guess, which we can finally reveal. Spiral number 1, spreadsheet part 1 by traditional overall scores. The traditional part is meaningful, and as we save our draft, it's a meaningful part because there's such a thing called newfangled overall scores too, to compare traditionals to. And looks pretty nice. I think I'm 1 for 1, even blabbing. you were not able to distract me sufficiently that I messed up. A nice, pretty box score. Spiral number 1, Spreadsheet Part 1 by traditional overall scores. And there's the overall scores. And Premiere, you know, it seems to say something. That Premiere is just about double everything else. And then you have a very nice descent after that. It's kind of made me think that a person should be able to look at Premiere by itself and figure out what the rogue site was. Because it is a very nice descent afterwards, isn't it? It's not even a descent that's especially out of whack after that first guess. Although I think I have 3 that are fairly, I don't know. I do not know. Well, Jules thought she saw a vague relatedness between Spiral and the top guesses. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that's really that striking. The bumpiness, the overall scores, the bumpiness that Rogue Site would suggest does not come through in overall scores. I mean, maybe Premieres are really close to Spirals. I don't know. And there are other signs of strange things going on, but it doesn't show up there. Yeah, well, okay. A person can study this for however long they feel they can do it. Overall scores, percentage scores, guess hits, raw shares, mystery hits, and all the HTML has kindly disappeared. All right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Galactic. Now that I'm putting some focus on percentages. Galactic, that's what we knew would score well. Near-death experience. I'm a little bit confused here. There seems to be a little bit of relationship between near-death experience, maybe, and outer space. Though it might have been its own thing. And then, God, you have to go down forever to find more that are that high. Hubble Space Telescope, I think from here on out, well, there's Ghost Stalkers. There's that television show that also outrageously outdid everything else at the percentage level. And yes, as we go down in scores, we start to get some wacky percentages. There's the Ghost Stalkers that Miss Markey guessed. And that is another one that I have on YouTube. Or wait a second, is that true? Or am I going to put it on YouTube? Did I put it there, or is it my plan? I think it's just my plan that I'm going to put that one on. As I think over what of these vast number of recordings is actually listenable. I don't, after a point, I think these aren't terribly listenable things that I'm doing right now. Beyond curiosity. After you satisfy the curiosity, I don't think a person wants to infinitely go on to the next update. And admiring my work. Excuse me for admiring my work. Stellar near-death experiences is the highest we had outside of Ghost Stalkers in percentage. And you can see I think it's rather significant. Towards the end, there's guesses get awful, and maybe most destructive of all is that are 2 zeros that are very bottom. The very worst percentages are at the very bottom. So I have been known to say that the percentages tend to go up as overall scores go down, or they can range up at the top if you're concentrating on the crest of a list. percentages do go up as traditionals go down, but that glosses over the point that percentages do have the potential to range even lower as the traditionals go down. They're choppy both directions. The extremes, you find the extremes in both directions, and we tend to be leaning towards the high scorers. So if you have a mindset that's leaning towards high scorers, you will notice that percentages increase. As larger things, you'll notice is the percentages will increase as the traditional scores go down. Anyways, it looks quite beautiful to me. I think this is where I want to go. Yes it is. So we're fine to publish this one. Publish spiral number 1, spreadsheet part 1 by traditional overall scores. And I publish it, and maybe it's going to be its own thing to admire this. This is going to be our own thing. Admire how it looks. To me, anyways, I don't get the eyesore of ads, like you might. So here's the only way to enjoy the post, potentially, conceivably, without the eyesore of ads. Although they throw in the word occasionally here, like people are not always shown this for some reason. And so there's it is in the backdrop of my actual blog. Does this tell us anything to do? I don't know. Okay, enough admiring of that. We need to fire up part 2. And let's escape. Take out that business. What do you want to call that? That electrified, my electrified spreadsheet. We shutting the power off the electrified spreadsheet. Okay. So we've done the first half. The second half, fortunately, does not require any of that strangeness about the zeros and the customization. I think all we need to do really is, well, we want to scoop up everything as we did before, but this time we're going to do it by largest AK. This is going to get us set up by differentials, which is a fine thing, I think, to expose us to, because I mean, it varies from game to game what measure I think is actually the most valuable, and I occasionally will reorient to give them the measure I think is most valuable if I don't think it's differentials. But differentials is a fine one to show this time around. Here they are ordered by differentials. Spirals is taken to be infinite, therefore the exclamation points. So yes, we take it up from here. AK, I was looking in the upper left corner to find if I had the table in the right place. AN, oh, it's not AN, differential, the guess, the number, guess. Okay. Reorienting, new table, guess, hits rank, shares rank, differential. This second set of placing the guesses here is actually superfluous. It's something that's nice when I'm doing a game. Yeah, for the purpose of scooping up the differentials for a given round, it's nice to have this, guesses here, differentials here. You scoop them up, you copy and you paste, etc., so forth. But it's extra baggage for this post. Guess number, screen name. Should we be going into once over on things right now? No, it's not really time to do the once over. It's not really time to do the once over yet. And I suppose maybe it'll never be. Maybe it'll never naturally be for what I'm doing right now. This will never naturally be the occasion to do the once over of all my other extra measures. Maybe the once over doesn't need to take that long. I'm going to come back, hang out with me even after this is finished up with. Okay, AT. It looks like it's AU. Yeah. AU is where we're going to find the end of our magic box. There it is. End of our table. We're going to cut this here. We have traveled to the bottom of the differentials, which, ticklish enough, is going to belong to, yes, right in here. Cut and paste. It's going to belong to Samsung Galaxy. Isn't that the wildest thing in the world? Spiral as in Spiral Galaxy was where the clearest scent was, and someone's guessed some damn product. It was also the only type of galaxy that was ever specifically guessed. Finished last place. So, yes, best. Okay, table, X. It's at the start of X. And we scoop it to what? Was it AU? We scoop it all the way to AU for the rest of our table to get to the end of the table. And this does leave for quite a bit of room that does not fall into the categories of either part 1 or part 2. Copy. Nice little time to go back to the over here. We're going to do another post. This is going to be spreadsheet part 2. Let's get all over there. Spiral number 1. Boom, boom. Spreadsheet part 2 by differentials. And we save the draft because potentially disasters can happen here. I am sometimes a bit more daring about whether I preview things, but crazy things are known to happen here. This looks nice though. Spiral at the top like it's supposed to look with its infinite scores. Supposedly. Nice clean 600 by Jules W. Especially fascinating to me to see where things look, this is just ghastly in its own way. Very, very striking. Half the guesses are from 300 and earlier. You have to go, looking at this is just bizarre. Oh, no, it doesn't. It's not effective. It's not effective. Could it possibly be effective if I go this way? No, it scoops up too much. But, yeah, 243 Libra Mana right down in here. Or the one below that, 523 Libra Mana, is the second highest. Massive star in differentials. Is the second highest guess that's actually from the second half of the game. That tells me we could have been going forever. We could have been going forever with this. But it kind of makes sense in the context of the game. It's not something to beat the people up over too much. And it's not really something to suggest that we should have gone longer than kerfuffle at the pace we were going. It doesn't quite work out that way. I did have a feeling that we were starting to get close. But in the late 500s, like even Samsung Galaxy, which finished last in differential, was a sign that we were getting close, because here we had someone who had it in their mind to guess blank galaxy, a galaxy of some sort. That happened in the late 500s. So in the larger sense, it was quite a good sign that we were getting close. We never went higher than an adjective in the theme that we understood. We never went higher than an adjective. Yet that was never really picked up on. We never really started going towards the adjectives as being the most likely. See, the part of speech clue was more than just noun. And as usual, they were noun fixated, having not been told specifically what the second or third, whatever parts of speech might be. Play could be better. It's possible to master this game a bit more than my people have. So we need to get new players but not me. I got my hands full. I don't need new players. I need new hosts. I need new hosts to take this to new websites to collect new players. Short of getting the game programmed. I don't know if that's meant for anybody in the world to do besides Google, though. And one assumes that they're on it. How can they not be on it? This is too simple, too obvious of a cool thing to do with a search engine. So, but so far I don't have the sign that they are. No indication that they are. Anyone's on it. Look at this. 2 apart. Premiere and screening. We're guessed 2 apart. But where do you go from there? No one figured it out until over 400 guesses later. Where do you take it from there? There's even some, well, yeah. And we took the spiral galaxy as far as we could with, after galactic telescopes certainly did well. Plot and dust are very curious. In fact, what do they really mean in the scheme of things? Even I don't really know, though I take them to be fairly general terms. Dust spiral, I guess. Do plots spiral out of control in movies? Is that it? A lot of this is very unclear to me. Or you think, well, spiral has many meanings in many different directions, and plot and dust are bizarrely the ones that follow spiral around the closest as it moves in its various myriad spiraling directions. I kind of think Empire is about the television show. It was hard to discern this stuff for sure. Jules had 2 of the top 3. Ad repeater, who was nowhere in sight in my boxcar measures, actually has the finest guess in the most discernible theme. The most replicable theme. No one could. We were very hit or miss about guesses related to premiere or screening. Very hit or miss about what was going to do well. given that clue. But galactic, we could be riffing off of galactic all day with confidence of getting high percentage scores. So, and differentials, like I say, would be a very good one to maybe even observing here, maybe observing on the cusp. What gets the +1? What gets the -1? For some, or -2, maybe carry a little further. What is the essential thing that's happening as we're going from negatives to positives? But it was the people never figured it out. They never figured out a way. What kind of guess leans positive outside of the obvious? Premiere and screening didn't lean positive. Yeah, this is significant in its own way. Stuff like premiere and screening, that did not lean positive at all. Maybe we could show that at the very bottom. Premiere and screening. Well, okay, showbiz, television, movie, and film. They're like fifth and second for television, movie, and well, there's other measures that show it better. Traditional shows it better. But then when you try to go deeper into movie and film by guessing movies and films and other movie-related things, showbiz, paparazzi, teaser trailer. See, trailer is way up there. Teaser trailer is way down. There was a time when we had some kind of screening that was at the very bottom of the barrel. Netflix. Okay, this is getting advanced screening. Where's advanced screening? Maybe we can just do that. We're going to amuse ourselves for a little bit longer. Oh, only -59? Really? Seems to me that there was once a time when advanced screening was the very worst guess on the board. Could that be true? In differentials? Maybe percentages? But it made for an extremely stark contrast between screening and advanced screening. Anyways, fascinating stuff. Mystery Universe were they were together. They were almost guessed. I guess by the second round they were both on the board, Mystery and Universe, and they never stopped touching each other. Yeah, 6 and 29. Guess 6 and 29 never broke contact with each other, and there they are, like exactly one off from each other in hits rank and shares rank. Isn't that wild? Almost identical scores, guess super close together, very logically, and there's nothing like that anywhere near. Guess 87 is above them. Ooh, there's kind of circle. We had a number 20, never built on it. It did lead in a few things at its time, and it led in something. Its heyday was actually around guess 60. At guess 60, it was leading in something we called differentials and traditional differential best worsts, and that certainly gives you a hint that there's more going on than the big three measures. It was strong. It was very strong relative to its guess number. It became stronger over time, is what that's saying. You know, it wasn't merely a 1 in 20 kind of guess. If you look at this list of 600, I think you're going to find it's higher than 30, or it's higher than 30 in certain measures. You know, for all the growth and getting on the scent, circle never dropped, never lost its strength when compared to other it was never diminished over time, but it was also really never developed. Never, I mean, even like rectangle. Let's guess rectangle. was never developed. We found astronomy and never found anything else after that. Because at that point, I mean, if you want to guess rectangle would have looked like a drop in the bucket compared to some of these other things. But then, don't ask a tender shoot from another theme to go as high as a theme that has been developed to the yin yang. And yin yang is one of our guesses here, in fact. So have we done this long enough? Have we ogled this long enough? I'm afraid I'm doing some of my own fresh ogling right now. And, look at this. Stellar near-death experiences getting in the way of a rather perfect-looking descent. What's it mean? What's it mean? Well, top differentials go with larger. Oh, no, you know what? Actually, ties are broken. Well, how's that go exactly? I don't think this is actually something we should expect to see. That was unusual. Yeah, ties are broken are by shares. Is it most shares to fewest shares? I think it is. Which means, in some general way, you should expect to see shorter words followed by longer words. Which is the reverse. Well, 8 to 7, I don't know. That was just kind of weird. Oh, et cetera, so forth. We should be seeing a lot of Greyflinks at the bottom. Greyflink is known for, it's more for percentages that he's known for this, or traditionals. Things that go right into the toilet. Less so for differentials, but let's see. He tends to guess the worst ones, and not necessarily. He's the one who will go out on a limb. It's not that he's the worst player, but he will guess the worst guesses, the worst scoring guesses, because he's the most willing inclined to go out on a limb. And it doesn't really show in differentials as much as it will in traditionals. Or we can check that out. Let's find out if that's actually true. So I've simply been saving at this point, right? Or saving the draft. And so here we go to the site to see how it looks like in the context of the site. Not terribly different, I guess, except there's all this business. What I actually do for this point typically is I go to Book Crossing and I post the silly things and I say, good game, everyone, or do something of a wrap-up nature. I actually have I have this magic time, 3:22 p.m. We're at 2:30 p.m. right now. 3:22 p.m. is the magic time at which, ideally, I post these things to Book Crossing. I have a little bit of a formula about how much rest we get between games. How I determine how much rest we're going to have before I post this stuff and then have a one-day countdown to the next game. And that would actually give me time to go to my beloved Starbucks. Will it be beloved Starbucks, or will it be beloved somebody else? It could very well be beloved somebody else, because I can get sick of Starbucks and there's still the evening to look forward to. Yes. I think we're going to another place. Another place which I can't mention by name because it's local. Starbucks, of course, is through the whole world, and you don't know that you can't swear right at this point that I don't live in Tokyo. I would think. But as far as my other haunts, we'll keep that low. I guess if we're going to, okay, let's not electrify ourselves. And or maybe that's what I need to be. I absolutely need to be electrified, because why would anyone listen to this stuff if I'm not electrifying? So if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So what do we have in the way of extras? All this stuff, blah, blah, that we've shown. Adjusted shares is brought out in search engine hot and cold, how to play, basics of how to play. Search engine hot and cold, basics of how to play. And that's actually something for your fingers, if you want to. That's search engine hot and cold. I believe I spelled out the words, the word and, as opposed to using an ampersand. Basics of how to play. Plat. If I'm going to make a typo, that's of course where I'm going to do it. Search engine hot and cold, basics of how to play. That's on YouTube. That goes over with some depth. Well, how we deal with the big three measures, and also just the mechanics of how to play, how a human being would play the game in the absence of a program that automatically plays. It automatically goes through these processes. So that's something to visit. Right now I'm going to supplement that video by showing you some of my other measures that are not covered there. I think I put, oh my God, I put a shoe on the wrong foot. I'm like aiming towards Starbucks. I'm seeing, I have it a little bit in my head that I want to advance to the next thing. And it put me so out of it with everything I'm trying to accomplish, I put my shoe on the wrong foot. I'm 48 years old. Put my shoe on the wrong foot. Age 48. I'm rather fond of the mistakes I made, of the mistakes I make in life. As I heard from my dear old dad at one point, memorably, that humans' greatest ability is their ability to make mistakes. Framing in terms of being an ability. And I certainly find that wonderful things happen when you mix your, when your chocolate gets mixed with your peanut butter. You bump into some beautiful girl on the street and your chocolate gets mixed with her peanut butter, and just wonderful things can flow from that point. So, and that's the philosophy, that's how philosophy flows as we tie our shoes. And it may not have come out otherwise. Staring at a screen, which is less inspiring in certain ways. Even if staring at a screen can cue you of the next thing to do, it can also be less inspiring than tying your shoe. So, where are we now? AW, are we getting into any of the good stuff? Yes. The good stuff for extras really goes on my spreadsheet from AW down to, I guess, down to CE. The cool stuff goes from AW to CE, and I don't, that's not where I wanted to go, but AW to CE on my spreadsheet, which is a heck of a lot, and I actually have a lot of blank space. It's not really that horrendous. Let's see what we have here. Oh, AW is this number. Well, okay. AW is the column that I set aside for shares rank. Yes, indeed. Shares rank. Shares rank is and it's shown elsewhere, I guess. I do have shares rank here. Column AH. But it's good for me to keep shares rank in sight over here. And it's good to keep it in sight of these other measures that I'm going to be combining it with. So I reproduce shares rank here, and I suppose one could call it, one can make a formula that shares rank is supposed to be AH. Why not AH? And repeat it. I feel like I've done this in the past. Hits rank, shares rank. I'm wondering, do I have a way to improve my own spreadsheet at this point? Or is that going to get me in trouble at some point? So I'm half feeling like I once did this before, of just deciding that this column was going to be a column with a formal formula. And just say that equals AH5 equals AH6 and go from there. Huh? Did I do it and have something go wrong at some point? Anyways, I just reproduce from scratch shares rank in column AW. Now, column AX, percentage rank, one supposes, okay, no, yeah, this is a different thing. Okay, percentage rank is not replicated. It's not a mere restatement of anything else. Percentage rank is what we get when we scroll by percentages, most percentages. So I'll scroll by most percentages, and then we'll just do like 1, 2, scoop them up, and then drag down. So, okay, we're going to get through this thing by being brief at each stop. Yes. You scoop through this thing by being brief at each stop. Here we are dealing with the extras. AW is shares rank. Scoop up the list by shares, order the list by most shares, and then when you get to column AW, you go 1, 2, collect, and scroll down to the bottom. AX is percentage rank. We order the list by highest percentage. Once we have it ordered, we go 1, 2, collect, and scroll to the bottom. At that point, I can collect AY and AZ together and scroll to the bottom with that. AY is newfangled overall scores, and up here it's explained. If we lose the W6 garbage, the 6 garbage, which simply tells you that we're talking about that row. And to keep in mind, the essential part is the AW and the AX. AW plus AX equals newfangled. Okay, newfangled equals AW plus AX. That's this plus this. So shares rank plus percentage rank equals newfangled overall score. Okay. Moving right along to AZ, that is what we call best worsts, or newfangled best worsts. And this is what that formula looks like. Newfangled best worst equals all this business, which is basically saying if AW is greater than AX, then, the comma says then, AW. If not, second comma says if not, AX. If shares rank is greater than percentage rank, then carry the shares rank forward. If not, carry the percentage rank forward. So AZ, the worst between 36 and 16 is 36. 36th place. It's a nice, it's a larger number, but it's talking about 36th place. This is talking about 16th place. That's better. We want the worst. And I tell the people, if you think you're only as good as you are at your worst, this could be the measure for you. Very often, or, occasionally, it is the best measure that we have in a game or at a certain stage of a game. It can be the measure that leads us closer better than anything else can. So BA, moving right along, BA is reserved for traditional rank. And of course, we deal with traditional rank elsewhere in terms of where we print first, second, and third, and include the ST, the ND, the RD endings for presentations from one round up to another. But when we perform the mathematical operations, we need to lose the letters. So BA is for traditional rank, losing the letters. Order by column D. Well, let's see. That's where maybe you can take my word for it. We don't have to do the scrolling as much as we might. But, or do we? Anyways, column D is where I set aside overall scores. And when you sort by column D overall scores, at that point you go 1, 2, collect, and scroll. And that's instrumental in certain extras that I go through. It's valuable information to have. Now, BB here is a simple restatement of AX. Gosh, maybe the whole thing is that I should have. Never. Wheels churning a little bit. Can I improve this? Can I improve on my spreadsheet? Okay, BB is a simple restatement because I like these things to be together. I don't want to lose track of AX as I'm doing BC in particular. BC is BA divided by BB, and what that really is saying is, well, this is BC. This is kind of freaky. BC is for the measure called the candle that burns at both ends. Okay? And the candle that burns at both ends, I'll leave it at that for the moment, is found by taking traditional rank and dividing that by percentage rank. What this gives us is traditional rank relative to percentage rank. And I think things are in order for us to actually look at this one more closely. The candle that burns at both ends. Let's do it by BC. Let's do it by BC smallest, because that's where it is. Is that how it is? That traditional rank divided by percentage rank? Is that what we were essentially looking at before? What do we have here? This BC. Traditional rank divided by percentage rank. These are a bunch of guesses that are very high ranking in traditionals. Low numbers for 1, 2, 3, first, second, and third. Some of our best traditional scores are up here. But this is also a group that is very poor, relatively speaking, in percentage scores. They tend to be kind of bland words, low in percentage, but they get a lot of shares. So they're very high. This is a group that is very high in traditional scores, relatively low in percentage scores. And that's what this brings out. Traditional rank divided by percentage rank. is how high are you in traditionals relative to how high you are in percentages. Now, when we get to the bottom of the list, we're going to see some of our very favorite guesses on the board. Ghost Stalkers is our percentage champion. Stellar near-death experience is our second. Is actually second in percentage. I believe Homunculus Nebula is actually third. Although from that point, they don't quite follow each other that perfectly anymore in terms of percentage. But these at the bottom are the guesses that have the highest percentages. And there's the BCs. These are the ones that have the highest percentages relative to their overall scores. You see, Galaxy Clusters is not perfect 1, 2, 3, 4 anymore. But here's an example. Ghost Stalkers is our percentage champion, but it was 357th out of 600. It was actually in the lower half in traditional overall scores because the guest did not get shares worth jack. Ghost Stalkers Spiral. Yes, the word spiral apparently for some reason appears very often on Ghost Stalkers pages. But Ghost Stalkers, not a whole lot of ghosts. There's a lot to the internet besides Ghost Stalkers, and Ghost Stalkers does not appear very much at all on in the grand scheme of things on web pages that feature the word spiral. Spiral is on Ghost Stalkers pages, but Ghost Stalkers is not on Spiral's pages to speak of. So it is way, way down there. 357th in traditional overall score, which leans towards shares, biased towards shares, while being first in percentages. And that 357 to 1 is a heck of a split. So it has the highest percentage rank relative to its rank in traditionals. And this is a significant number. It gains in significance when you have, it turns out this gains in significance when you have a rogue site issue. It has been found that often when you have a rogue site issue, the certain guesses will be, you might have a guess that is first in both percentages and traditionals. There's more variance. Okay. The thing is that rogue sites make for terms, let's see, rogues, they're hyper specific. I found in the past that sometimes some mysteries in general, some mysteries are very specific in where they occur. You can use general words for mysteries. You can use words that are hyper specific in terms of where they appear as mysteries also. When a mystery is hyper specific in where it appears, hyper or specialized. When a mystery is specialized in terms of the locations it appears in, and nothing's going to be more specialized than a single rogue site, a single website where a mystery will appear and might not appear anywhere else, but at this one specific site. That's as specific as it gets. When that happens, you find that traditional scores will dovetail with percentages. As a guess becomes more general, you start to see more divergence. As a mystery becomes more general, you start to see more divergence between its traditional scores and its percentage scores. So when you see a split like 357 to 1, yeah, okay, fine, BC. You see a split like 357 to 1, this is the case for ghost stalkers. Now, ghost stalkers, I think, is also on the specific side where it's going to appear. But chances are it is more general as things go than where, let's say another example. We don't have anything that's that dramatic. We don't have the case of the 116. I wonder, maybe I should be showing it up here somewhere. I don't know that it's really, it might just be that it's not really especially coming into play in this mystery. And that's another thing that I will tell the people is that I'll introduce the candle that burns at both ends and say that the beauty of this, or relativity, the beauty of relativity. Okay, fine. This needs a little bit more explanation. The candle that burns at both ends is broken down into traditional relativity for scores that are below 1, for guesses that score higher in traditionals than differentials. One half of the list is called traditional relativity. When I don't do fullsies, I post limiteds. These are the guesses that score better in traditionals than they score. I've selected here the guesses that score better in traditionals than they score in differentials. And they are folded into the traditional relativity side of things. And here's for that are neither. And then here's the guesses that score better in percentages than they score in traditionals. And they'll be featured when I post the 5 deep elites for percentage relativity. So the candle that burns at both ends is virtually half traditional relativity and half percentage relativity. And guesses at both extremes can be significant depending on the mystery. The candle that burns at both ends, it will highlight what it does, it highlights the more general of two usages that a mystery may have. Now, Spiral has way more than the two usages, and maybe more than two significant usages. So it starts to get a little bit difficult to tell things apart. But it will at least help you tell apart the most hyperspecific usage from the next most hyperspecific usage. And sometimes there are mysteries that are very general in the main, but which have this one specific hyperspecific usage also. And that's really what traditional this is really what the candle is most built for, is discerning between two different usages, one of which is very specialized and one of which is very general. It turns out that there is a greater potential for specialized usages to generate higher scores. But there's all kinds of problems associated with specialized usage mysteries. And I don't want to go through, enumerate all the different kinds of headaches specialized usages can bring when there is a competing general usage as well. So if you want to ignore the effects of a rogue site, if you want to bypass the effects of a rogue site, the best thing you can do is focus on relativity, because that will bring out, see, what happened? What's the most inspirational case for it? Actually, I didn't bring it out. I didn't have it for floundering. I wish I did. I actually brought it out for port wine stain. But it could have been so helpful to us in many other of our mysteries. Most notably in my mind, groovy. There's the groovy we know and love, cool and groovy, smooth and groovy. 1960s, the most overused word in the world at the time in the United States. And of course, the United States is the world, right? That's what you're taught if you're, as a baseball fan, talk about the World Series. And and maybe more subtly elsewhere. So the mystery groovy, there's the groovy that we knew and loved, and there was the groovy that I had, which was the groovy that I had in mind as a host, which I wanted to lead us to. That was the usage I thought would be interesting to approach. But then it turned out there's such a thing as the groovy programming language. The groovy programming language, and which no one would care at all about in an everyday context. As an everyday word, no one talks about the groovy programming language in an everyday context. Or the groovy in that sense. You know, pretty much unheard of. It would be pretty much unheard of on the street if you're talking about the groovy programming language. On the internet, it is less crazy to talk about the groovy programming language, but it is still a minority usage. It was still very much a minority usage in terms of the entire scope of the internet. It is still the groovy we know and love that is used more often than the groovy programming language. But groovy programming language is highly specialized usage, and it could get really crazy percentage scores and crazy enough high percentage scores to also make the traditional scores crazy high. And at the very crest, there was more potential for high scores when it came to the groovy programming language than there was potential for high scores for the groovy we know and love. So my mystery started getting taken over by all this computerese that I didn't really count on, and it still made for an interesting mystery, interesting to learn about this computer stuff. It certainly wasn't my intent, and it certainly wasn't going to help players who, you know, are going to fare better or be happier playing a mystery where they know the words, where they're familiar with the words involved. It wasn't going to help our intuitive feel for things. It was the mystery. It became forced. It became use of the search engine became forced on us. And I think a lot of us like that. And in fact, we may have evolved a kind of player who actually likes searching things, because I have tended, my mysteries have been tending toward things that no one's ever heard of. It's its own special thing to be pursuing a mystery in which you have never heard of the word that you're searching for. And that, that's crazy talk in terms of the usual kind of mystery that people play around the dinner table or elsewhere, having fun, like, let's play 20 questions, guess what I'm thinking of. It's crazy talk to conceive of pursuing a mystery in which the guesser has never heard of the thing. But that is not the case in Search Engine Hot and Cold. And it's one of the charms of the game. So sometimes I like to send us that direction. And for the frequency that I do that, I may have attracted a certain type of player who actually likes using search engines and learning about cool things as they go. But it is possible to play the guessing game with a closed book. Very often it is possible to play the guessing game with a closed book without use of a search engine. And in fact, the search engine, I think, will get in your way. If you want to soak in the lists by your intuitive sense of how words relate to one another. So it would have been so nice if back in the day of Groovy, we had the candle that burns at both ends. And have this measure at our disposal to separate the things that did well, separate the guesses that were deriving the bulk of their scores from the Groovy programming language, from the guesses that were deriving the bulk of their scores from the Groovy we know and love. They would have been able to keep the game on an intuitive plane, and probably found the mystery faster, because there's all kinds of problems. For one thing, there's all kinds of problems associated with black hat mysteries, which is the original word that I used for cases where the specialized meanings that were unfamiliar to us were taking over, where minority meanings were taking over because of their specialized nature. Those are black hat mysteries. And sometimes it's one site, and sometimes it's a very small collection of sites. It would have been a very small collection of sites for the Groovy programming language, rather than a single rogue. One of the problems with that, just to tell you about just one instance of why these things can be headaches, is that we weren't actually pursuing. The mystery was not actually the Groovy programming language. So if someone had finally guessed Groovy programming language, woohoo, huge score, Groovy programming language, I suppose maybe they could have after 100 of these games, I think people would know at some point to back out of Groovy programming language and chop off the back part of it and derive it Groovy. But if you were looking at all these high computer terms, high scoring computerese terms, you think, oh, it has something to do with computers. The mystery has something to do with computers. And at base, that wasn't true. So you still have to make a leap. You have to make a leap from all this computer stuff that we've been following. Maybe we've been following it for months. A long mystery that's difficult to get to the finish line on. Could conceivably, if it's dastardly enough, it could conceivably last months at our correspondence pace. It could conceivably last for months, and then you have to back out of that and say, no, it's not about computers at all. It's just that we were going for, we were just following that scent for the ultimate purpose of dropping the programming language part off of it to leave us with plain old Groovy. That can be hard to do. It can be hard to back out like that. Or, make the sudden reverse and alter your psychology that, no, it's get your mind around your head around the idea that, no, it is not a computer or anything that we're pursuing. So, you want to bypass a headache of that nature, traditional relativity, percentage relativity, the counter that burns at both ends, that can help you out. So, the formula on the spreadsheet in this case, BA divided by BB, traditional rank divided by percentage rank. Boy, that was a mouthful. And if I want to get to Starbucks, if I want to meet a deadline and probably in the process probably bore you less, I should be zipping through this stuff. All of this blank garbage, or largely blank garbage, I guess it is blank as far as we can see from here. There are, occasionally there are measures that I did put in here. It's a bit of a scratch paper area, or it has been known to be a scratch paper area. If absolutely none of the measures I have bring out the mystery as well as I think something else could, I will invent a measure on the fly to deal with it. And that's one thing that I did a unique combination. I brought in a unique combination of measures at one point when our mystery was Safe Haven. When our mystery was Safe Haven, we once had Safe House being guessed and doing amazingly well, as you would think that Safe House would. But I had no measures that were actually bringing it out as number one. But I could see that the guess was unique if we could only bring out that uniqueness. I had nothing that was that good at bringing out its uniqueness. So I went out to my scratch paper and found a way. I don't think my scratch paper even brought it out as a number one, but I think I managed to bring it out as high as number two on a list that was quite long. By using one of these off-the-cuff scratch paper measures. So we move right along. Oh, no, let's not move on that fast. What my scratch paper is used for most of the time now is something called collective intelligence. And it was something that I don't typically stay motivated to keep up with the collective intelligence. But I'll show you an example of what we would do. There's not a lot here. There's not a really good example here. I think you can do it for entertainment. The idea is that you break down words into smaller words. Or here, this is actually a pretty good case. Collective intelligence, you would take a word like entertainment here, and you would break that down into a smaller component. Entertain is a smaller word within the word. This is like a suffix. We don't bother with suffixes. But we would take down the entertain. And for ET is actually a pretty good one. That one breaks down intent-wise. It breaks down into extraterrestrial. So we would then take we would then do extra and terrestrial. So it takes larger words and it breaks them down. It will take acronyms and build them up to what are the words within these words, or without, I guess, within and without. What are the words, what are the core words that appear most often in guesses? And I happen to know that, or at one stage, we had 19 different words that used the word star. So collective intelligence, where star would be a part of the guess. So that would give, in collective intelligence, that would give the word star 19 points. So if you make a basic assumption that 8 different people soaking up a list have a clue of what the mystery is, you can find significance in, particularly if someone just walking in on the game, could find significance in what are the words that appear the most often. You know, it being its own thing, its own sign of the strength. So a sign that star, something to do with stars, a sign that star was a good guess or a good theme to pursue was in the very fact that we had been pursuing it for so long and so heavily. I have 2 words for this measure. One is collective intelligence, and the other is self-hypnosis. This is the self-hypnosis measure, because if you're off, you know, if you're miles from it, you could fool yourself. Like, when we had a mystery recently, I guess cake was an example. For some reason, we kept no amount of horrible scores, in fact, could stop us from guessing cake or guess with things with cake in them. It got pretty ridiculous. But if you were following, but in terms of collective intelligence, if you just feel like you spend your whole life, your whole game guessing one type of cake after another, you can find cake leading the world in self-hypnosis foolsies, collective intelligence foolsies, by simple virtue of the fact that you were guessing it. By sheer force of will, you could make a term number one. If you have the force of will over others, by sheer force of will, you could make anything you want lead in collective intelligence. But I do think that collective intelligence can have value. This is the one that I brought out when the mystery was 5-second rule. Okay, that was one of the toughest ones we ever faced, and the word food was guessed at one point, and it did extremely well. I guess that it number 1 in shares. Did it even number 1 in shares? I'm trying to think about that. I think there were some strange things that went on that made it drop from its number 1 spot in shares occasionally, and then it got its number 1 back when I discovered that there had been some kind of problem with Deeper Web was being weird, or there was maybe occasional rogue site bursting through at some time and then fading. So in the first place, I think when the word food led in anything, it was in shares. It didn't lead in shares straight through for these various oddities coming up. It didn't lead to shares straight through from the point of being guessed. And if it led in anything, the only thing it was going to lead in was shares. And that is a category that is a bit of a who's care. Most of the time, it's a bit of a who cares category, because a guess that is high in hits, which is neutral. It's not good or bad, but a guess that is high in hits is going to lead to guesses that are consequently high in shares. So it's possible for a guess to go very high in shares without especially being high in relatedness. It can mean something. I don't think it's quite a who cares category, but I don't officially get excited about guesses that go high in shares. I don't give people exclamation points. I don't virtually scream my head off on guesses that are high in shares. So food was not a guess to make me scream my head off. I would have to look back to see in its context if I might have screamed my head off for other reasons. But I would not scream my head off by simple virtue of the fact that a guess was number one in shares. So that's where we stood for 5-second rule. That was part of what was going on in 5-second rule, or a little vignette from that mystery. But when you looked at how often the word food appeared in guesses, you take the player's sense after a certain point that the mystery has something to do with food. Suddenly, the food, or the theme of food, it had an extraordinary bearing on people's thinking. Things that had to do with food scored well invariably. Nothing else seemed to score well. So every damn guess was about food, pretty much. And many of those actually used the word food as part of the guess. And so that was striking to me. And eventually I decided, well, let's count them up. Let's count them up and make this its own measure. Make this its own measure. How often does a given discrete words appear in a mystery? And when I ran collective intelligence fullsies in the mystery 5-second rule, finally I had a measure that seemed to tell me and the people just how dominant a guess, how dominantly strong a guess food was. It was head and shoulders over everything else in collective intelligence, as well it should have been. You look at what else we had going, what else was guessed, and I wasn't seeing anything else that was, to my mind, that was as strong as food in that mystery. So collective intelligence was the measure that finally bore out just how strong a guess food was in that particular mystery, when nothing else did. But yes, there can be a downside, hence help self-hypnosis. And I guess I haven't felt that critical about maintaining it. Maybe I could turn over a leaf and try to keep up with collective intelligence like I do with everything else. So yeah, I lost the will to keep up with. And it uses a bit of my own brain. I kind of don't like to use my own brain about splitting words how words should be split. A little bit of that I don't like to bring in. So I did not keep it up for this mystery. I did not stay current with collective intelligence, and eventually I made some kind of error where my columns didn't stop lining up anyways. So sometimes this blank area is for scratch paper, and sometimes it's to pursue the measure of collective intelligence / self-hypnosis. So here, this column BP, the cute thing about this is not just a guess, it's a guess in quotes, which required a special formula. What's the deal there? K5 equals K6. What's that about? So it equals the guess, but it has been customized. It's been customized to add quotes. I don't know offhand exactly what I did to achieve that. I wonder, will we simply see a couple of quotes and that's it? But yes, this column has been customized to add quotes for purpose of search friendliness. So if you scoop up a bunch of these, sometimes this is why when I post top 10s, I don't include the first, second, third business, because that gets in the way. I don't do this. This is what I don't do. When I produce top 10s, I don't do this stuff because it gets in the way of making things search friendly. Okay. So when I do the top 10s, I like to have them in quotes. So that if a person is inclined, they can scoop up the whole business or a part of the business, or scoop up pieces more easily into a search engine and just go to town plugging them into search engines. At some point in my life, I wanted to encourage them to use the search engine because I thought it was necessary. Sometimes I don't think it's necessary. But now we have search-friendly quotes for just in case, a bit of an encouragement. And, I've probably gone overboard. It probably is something that's taken them away from doing things intuitively. But then it's also another way for them to go wrong. You have the option. You don't have to use it. It's a way to go wrong. And that kind of helps separate the cream from the cud. Is that what cream is separated from? Or the cream is cud? Cream from not the crop. Cream from the other stuff, the non-cream. Okay. So what do we have here? Let's discover this on our own together. BQ, what is BQ? BQ is differential rank with a earliest guess number tiebreaker. BQ, differential rank, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then scroll. Highest differentials. You sort the list by the highest differentials, and then from there you find out from there you do the differential ranks. That's what that is. BR is a restatement of traditional ranks, which goes towards differential relativity. This one is interesting. This one is too interesting for our own good. I find differential relativity to only have value when it comes to differentials relative to traditionals. Traditionals relative to differentials, it does not really work as a candle that burns at both ends, because the other direction does not lead to guesses that are good in their own way. Only the top half has value. And I found the top half here can have especially significant value in mysteries that have strange shares structures. If you have a mystery where a lot of guesses are lumped together at the same level of shares, like there's a rogue site influencing things, we have an unnatural progression in shares. And there is a little bit of unnaturalness in this one. I don't know if we want to spend a little time with that. Sort, W, get us some shares. I think at the very crest we're a bit unnatural in this mystery. At the very, very, very crest of it. Let's see what we got. Well, it certainly is unnatural to have 8 pushing up against mystery hits. 8 that have 100% of what 8 that guesses they have 100% the shares the mystery hits has. So they're pressing up against a ceiling here. That's its own kind of a naturalness. And I think it represents a change in deeper web. Deeper web used to allow for guesses to do the impossible of more shares than the mystery has hits. And lately, we've just been pushing up against a ceiling instead of doing the impossible. But there's quite a push here. And then if you come down off that plane, you should be seeing more and more and more at each level. But here's a good example. There's a bunch in the 10s, and a bunch in the 10s that are a fair number of the 10s that are shy of perfection, and then quite a collection in the 9s, quite a collection in the 8s, but only 7 in the 7s, and only 3 in the 7s. When you would expect normally for numbers to be going up, only 1 in the 1s. Yeah. Okay, what am I saying? Only 3 in the 7s, only 1 in the 6s. A stable kind of 3 in the 5s, which is the same level as number 7, and less in the 5s than there are in the 8s or the 9s or the 10s. And that's unnatural. So, and then things finally start turning in the direction they're supposed to be. We're finally starting to turn to a place where there's more 3s and 4s and more's in the 2 millions, I guess it is. We're talking about millions now. Then the 1 millions. And it becomes more sane after that. But there is a bit of an unnatural progression towards the top in shares. Probably because of a rogue site. And when you have that, when you have an unnatural progression in shares, and let's not try to speculate on why. I actually don't have a why in my head immediately. But differential relativity will bring out a guess better than plain differentials can. Will bring out the essence of the mystery that we're seeking better than plain differentials can. And I think there's also an element of, it does well. Goodness. There's also the element of it bringing out the general usage better. It does well at both separating the general usage from the specialized usage, and especially well, sometimes it's the very best one when we have bizarre structures in shares. Yeah. When you have bizarre structures in shares, relativity differential relativity does especially well. And that is column, no BS. It happens to be column BS, but it's no lie. I shit you not. BS differential relativity can be very valuable in circumstances as outlined. A lot of these don't really need a whole lot of explanation. BT, it looks like a mess, but all it is, we've shown the principle before when I showed you newfangled best worst. BT, this is percentage differential best worst, where you take the poorer ranking between percentages and differentials. This is the straight combination of percentages plus differentials. Percentage differentials. BV is something for old times that I never show anymore. What is it? It's percentage rank plus traditional rank. It's a little bit of a freak show. It's something called sum of ranks that I used to use quite a bit, but it's been overshadowed. It doesn't really do as well as some of these other measures now that I have some of these other measures developed. But I keep around sum of ranks as an artifact. BW, this is traditional rank. This is traditional differentials. And traditional rank plus differential rank. And this one here is the best worst. Traditional differential best worst, where you take the lower, the poorer ranking, the higher number, which is the poorer ranking between traditionals and traditional rank and differential rank. And if you were to take over as host, I don't think you want to do what I have done. I think you would want internal consistency and have your percentage differentials here and your best worst version of it there, your traditional differentials there, and your best worst, and your, the artifact. You might not want the artifact. You might want to get rid of this altogether because I don't use it anymore. And you can streamline you can get through this in one less column than I do on that basis. But anyways, I have these things reversed. I have my best worst here and my basic combo there, but my basic combo here and my best worst there. So I'm in reverse. You would probably want internal consistency. I made my bed and I'm deciding to lie with it. I've decided that I can memorize this. That I'm fine in knowing what's what. But you want to get off on the right foot. You're going to want the internal consistency that I lack here. BY is another artifact. This is percentage rank plus differential rank plus traditional rank. It basically groups all of the big three measures together, and it's the measure that I call triple crown. Triple crown foolsies when I post full lists for it. Just throws all the big three together, and I don't find that it does as well as certain things I've developed since. So I never use it anymore. Maybe one day I'll revive it for a special occasion. But it's pretty much an artifact nowadays that I don't use. I maintain the column just in case. Then the column is maintained accidentally as a byproduct of maintaining these other columns. So it's at my fingertips if I ever want to use it. Differentials might take a little bit. This is AE divided by AH. It's really not so different though from what we've seen before. AE and AH, let's get back to it. Where is this stuff? AE and AH, what is that? What is AE and AH? Oh, okay, it's hits rank and hits rank and shares rank. We use hits rank and shares rank all the time towards finding differentials, which is hits rank minus shares rank. All we're doing with differentials is replacing that minus sign with a divide sign. We divide the two rather than subtract. And that gives us a different flavor. It gives us a flavor that puts more emphasis on high shares terms. In fact, I think it's our very best measure. Should I even say that? Should I call it a limit? Panda Cigarettes loved. This was the measure that Panda Cigarettes loved. Yeah. Panda. The word panda in the mystery Panda Cigarettes was unable to get. Well, it won in shares, of course, but shares is my who cares category. And outside, just kind of like as the same way that collective intelligence was developed, here was a case that screamed for a measure that could bring out its wonderfulness, and yet somehow probably have some relationship to the fact that Panda Cigarettes, the mystery Panda Cigarettes, had so few mystery hits. But in any case, the word panda was guessed in Panda Cigarettes, and I was unable to give it. I was not self-programmed to give it, to yell as loudly for it as I thought I should have been able to, because it did not lead in anything besides shares of the categories I had thus far developed. So differentials were born, and finally was able to bear out that in some way that panda was a better guess than anything on the list. An exclamation point category. I think that it was a qualified. I think it was it a qualified best? Must have been a qualified best. It may even have been a qualified best that may even have been transcendent. Don't quote me on that. It might have been a wrecking ball, which is a glossary term for a qualified best that knocks out at least 3 guesses on its way in. That's a wrecking ball. You're transcendent if you knock out 1 or 2, and you're still transcendent if you knock out 3, but you're also a wrecking ball if a qualified best knocks out 3 or more. So it might have been a qualified best. It might have, and I know it led in shares. I mean, it might have been a transcendent qualified best. It might have been a wrecking ball, and it definitely led in shares. But neither of those get you automatic exclamation points. Neither of those will make me give you an exclamation point in the headline, because shares is a who cares category, and there's always going to be at least one qualified best that is there by virtue of the fact that it led in shares. So by extension, it too has a little bit of the who cares in it. And until I developed differentials, I could not get anything other than who cares number ones for panda in the mystery Panda Cigarettes. So hits rank divided by shares rank is sometimes the best that we have on offer, and that's what I do in column BZ. CA, what is CA? A bunch of garbage? Formerly a bunch of garbage? A blank space for no good reason? CA. It's a blank space for no good reason. Maybe to put in, maybe to restate the guesses at some point. Who knows? But at this point, I don't want to mess with my graph. I don't want to. There's potential to mess up things if you delete a thing you shouldn't. Delete a column that you shouldn't be deleting. I don't know if I messed this up or not. But anyways, it's sitting there in space, abbreviation for California, sitting in space, doing nothing. Scratch paper, it's not a lot of scratch paper. It's for whatever you want it to be. That's what it is. It's for whatever you want it to be. Practicing your typing without finding the home row position. That's what it could be for. Anyways, I don't use CA for anything. CB is where we put differential rank. We order it by most differentials, and then we set aside a column for differential rank. And CC then, BQ, this would be differential differential fullsies. Splitting the diff. Splitting the diff between differentials and differentials. Find something that's in between the biases of tweeners, a little way station between the biases of tweeners and high shares, medium high shares. So to highlight the guesses with the medium high shares, we have differential rank plus differential rank. And then CD, I guess, is an artifact, which is, what is this? We'll find out this together. This is, oh, okay, then it takes this is going to be 3. So now you have, so once you establish differential rank plus differential rank, you can add to that percentage rank. So what do we got here? We have splitting the diff slash percentages, which is a bit out of control, but apparently there was an occasion when I thought that brought something out that other guesses could not, other measures could not. So there's a very weird artifact. And then CE is the best worst version. You know, differential, differential, best worst, taking the poorer ranking between differentials and differentials and carrying that forward. And then we have, God, we have as much beyond that, as much scrap paper as your heart could possibly desire. But I just take it down to column. I take it down to column CE, and that is that. And I am due for the people. It is not a tragic situation that I am slightly late. And in fact, by some measure, I should not be considered late, because in an ideal world, I don't start my countdown until I have heard congratulations from every guesser on the team. And I still haven't heard congratulations from either Harley or Aberpeter. Harley is about due, because he'd been staying pretty close tabs, but no, he hasn't done anything. But Aberpeter I haven't seen for a week, so I was not going to wait on pins and needles for Aberpeter, regardless of anything, because she's been gone for a week, and a week can extend to a year. And a year can extend, and we don't want to go that way, but a year can extend to forever. Surely don't want to put our minds that direction. I'm very happy to have 8 guessers, and Aberpeter has been one of my youngest, and hence one of my more energized. And I have found very distinctly that that youth beats experience in this game. It is so important to come in fresh with energy. And that might present a little bit of a snag for the possibility of us taking over chess. If people fall in love with this game and then find that they can't improve. They love the game but don't find themselves getting better. And how long are you going to pursue a thing? How long are you going to pursue a cool game that you've grown stagnant in with regards to your personal growth, your personal mastery of it? Jules started out slow. Jules didn't get a solve until her 15th, until her 16th mystery. But then, of course, she got the winning streak, the 6-game winning streak, at very shortly after that. So Jules is pretty much like, Jules follows the trend in that sense. That players were stronger once upon a time than they are now. They like the game. They fall into a pleasant routine. They throw out their 2 guesses, but they're not young anymore as far as the guessing game goes, and it is so important. I think that's really the largest reason that ad repeaters took over the game at one point, and Liber Mana to an extent has also been coming on strong. Just taking over the game for the fact that they were fresh, new to the game, have their learning curve ahead of them, stuff, and being extra motivated. So they've taken over the game. They've got some they give the appearance of having taken over the game, but I think they're not as good as they're young. Borrow a lyric from John Cougar Mellencamp. That's Hurt So Good, by the way. The song is Hurt So Good. And you're on YouTube. This is a perfect time to, it's a fairly perfect time to leave you with a little something. What you're going to do next on YouTube, Hurt So Good. You know what? If I put these in the tags, we have just a little bit of a chance, a very slight chance, one supposes, but a chance nonetheless, to have this be what you're led to after me, or in your quick series of things you can click after you've seen this. Hurt So Good, John Cougar Mellencamp. Look for the lyrics that you aren't as great as you are young. John Cougar Mellencamp. I don't know. I think his way, a little of him goes a long ways. I don't think you want to hear it. A couple of songs like that you're good for, with some good interspersing. I don't know if you want to hear a whole damn album of that stuff, of a guy with an attitude, and maybe kind of a downer attitude. But anyways, this has been Tommy Walker, of the inventor of MonstrousWalker's guessing game. And well, the MonstrousWalker part comes from the fact that that's the main title of my book above, which I'm the author of. So I'm a Tommy Walker author and inventor, and that goes for a second game, a baseball simulation that is in the works. So apparently I'm a game inventor. I've done the thing twice. I don't know, I would not have necessarily identified myself as a game inventor, although I was prolific in childhood. And now I've actually invented 2 games that could go somewhere with your help. Baseball simulation still being programmed, and this thing, which of course ought to be programmed too, but that's not going to be for me to do. The book is beautiful. And it is a nonfiction. Emphasis on non. It's a nonfiction coming of age story. And so those are the dimensions of me that a person should care about. Oh yes, the one thing you want to care about is that I'm a good guy. I am a good guy. That's something to care about. And And yes, there we are. And I will hopefully see you later.